different up here. Y'all still cold? I know I was. We don't have a lot of time, so I am going to jump right into this because this is a powerhouse that is, I have the distinct honor of chatting with. We've had a chance to chat a little bit before we got together on the stage, and I am excited for you all to hear the great stories that are coming from each and every single one of them, because I know I was blown away, so I'll be generous and share it all with you. Ladies, thank you for joining. Now that we're here, we got all our bellies right. We're talking about women in leadership. Yes, we're all in leadership positions, but it wasn't always like that. And what better way to let the audience know how you got here by telling us who you are, because we all look different in these pictures, because I know I do. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of background on your journey, how you got here, and if you even want to touch on, did you ever see yourself in this leadership position? Did you aspire to be here, or it's like you just sort of fell into it? Reham, I'm looking at you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning because it sets the stage for really who I am today. My family actually moved to the United States from Egypt, so that's where I was born. Grew up down south, lived a lot of different places, but my journey in this industry started, my first corporate job out of school was as a merch coordinator in the buying offices of Dayton Hudson Marshall Field. I worked there for a couple of years. The first third of my career was in planning. I worked at different brands in planning, Ralph Lauren, Nautica Jeans, and then I had my first sort of mini GM experience. I went and ran the apparel business for 50 Cent and G-Unit. So my team and I, you can thank for those tank tops. I'm sure many of you own them.
I personally own the shoes, because if you can't tell where I'm from.
The G-Unit,
yes.
For sure. Those were hot too. So I was in New York for several years working at those brands, and then I moved into product and merchandising, and I fell in love with, this blend of art and science that you get to have when you work on product. And through my work there, I guess reputation was mentioned on the panel this morning. I got recruited by Nike, so I spent 13 years of my career at Nike, 9 of those years in the Jordan brand. Half the time I spent overseas, so as a GM leading the Jordan brand for China, and then moved to Amsterdam. And then I decided to resign from Nike in 2019 and chase a new dream. And now I work at Target. I lead strategic partnerships for Target across the businesses, working on bigger brands like Apple, Disney, Levi's. Thank you for the food. Yeah, so that's a bit of my journey. And did I aspire? Yes. The first time I went to New York at 8 years old, I came home and was like, yep, I'm going to be the president of IBM. Had no idea why I picked that company at the time. It must have been in the news a lot.
It was like the company at the time.
I guess. Yeah. So I knew I always wanted to run a business, but I didn't know actually what that meant.
Yeah.
So, and here I am by the grace of God sitting in this seat today. So.
Okay. Hey. Well, for me, I came through a different path. I told a joke at one of our brand conferences a few years back that when I was 3, I was sitting there with an abacus, and I said I wanted to be a planner. I actually was on a path to be an accountant. Say abacus? Yes. Y'all know what an abacus is? Little toy where you move the beads along, how they used to count things, I guess, years ago in ancient times. But I was going to be an accountant. I started self-studying accounting when I went into middle school. Not really clear why. I always had an affinity for numbers. But then, once I got into college and afterwards, I didn't really think I was going to be on track for moving through the ranks of how accounting firms work, doing auditing, ultimately maybe getting into management, then becoming a partner. Yep. I found that working for the companies I was working for, I really liked the product, the commodity, or whatever that we were moving. So I started taking a different focus and getting into purchasing, buying, and then ultimately planning roles. I have worked in what's called cosmeceuticals. So if you're putting pharmaceutical type products into over-the-counter skincare products. I've worked within hospital supply, pharmaceutical distribution, and that doesn't mean a bad thing. But and then I entered into the retail space, if anybody remembers, like the Papyrus stationery stores. And then we also had acquired the Carlton Cards and American Greetings. So doing merchandise planning for those stores and leading the planning organization. And then I was proposed an opportunity to come into footwear, to come create a planning department at a shoe brand called Vionic that's based in Northern California. Kind of an odd space for it to crop up. It was an Australian company. And then I went there and I did that. Did I ever think that's what I was going to be doing when I was younger? No. Like I said, I thought I was going to have a career in finance. But this has just opened up a whole world for me.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
My name's Jennifer Ford. I own a retail store in Houston, Texas, a sneaker boutique.
Can we give it up for that? She's like, I just own a sneaker boutique. It's nothing.
My journey probably started when I was young. Retail's always been my life. Like as kids, we would make stores in our house and like sell each other stuff. And my first job in high school was retail. I went to college thinking I wanted to be a dentist, but I worked in a small boutique even then in college. So after I graduated, I went to New York to be a buyer for a department store. I moved around within that, worked in advertising and in product development. But I saw a glass ceiling, and I wanted to work for myself. So at the time, I had a friend who opened a boutique in Brooklyn. He's actually one of the, if not the only black sneaker boutique in New York, which is pretty awesome, right? But I followed him a little bit, learned a little bit about working for yourself in the sneaker industry, and then I went home and opened a boutique, and I am 19 years this year. And did I ever see myself as a leader? Not necessarily. I just enjoy doing something I love with a product I love, and all the friendships that have come along the way.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deirdre Roberson. I'm a Detroit native, so born and raised. I attended Cass Tech High School. I don't know if we got any Cass technicians. So just a little bit about my journey. Didn't think I would be here at all. Very interesting. I am a chemist as well. So I actually attended undergraduate school, Xavier University, which is a HBCU. It's the #1 HBCU for producing black doctors in the whole country, right? So I was on a chemistry track. Even though I had started sewing and designing since I was 12 through my grandmother, I was always pushed to go into something as a first-generation college student that was very more safe and secure, right? So I went on my bachelor's in chemistry at Xavier University. Then I attended University of Detroit Mercy here and did my master's. And it was literally working in industry, thinking about how do you bring these two worlds together, that I actually was sitting on my living room couch and I got the idea to create my brand U-Melanin. So U-Melanin is actually the specific type of melanin that's responsible for the black and brown color in skin and hair, right? So I decided to launch a brand bringing those worlds together, my chemistry side and also my creative side. And that's kind of how U-Melanin was birthed. And so now I sit at this amazing intersection of STEM and fashion. And everything I do is centered around that and making sure black and brown voices are being heard, but also empowered, whether it's through education on the STEM side and through a brand, U-Melanin as well.
Y'all heard her say she was a chemist. Yes. Right. That's amazing. I wanted you all to hear their stories because we can read titles on a slide and say, oh, that's cool, but I did a little homework on all of these ladies. Their stories are amazing, and I also, when you listen to them, there's a red thread of I didn't think I was necessarily going to do this or take this path. So it's a reminder to all of us that it's never, or hardly ever, a straight shot up. You know, it's chess, not checkers. We're always trying to, all of us are trying to elevate, but it's never a straight shot. So I just wanted us all of that to keep in mind as we're going through our conversation, because sometimes we can get tripped up on that. I'm not there yet. Maybe that's not your direct path, but eventually you'll get to where you want to go. So, as we move forward in our careers, as we continue to elevate, you know, we get to like maybe a manager level, and then, you know, you're at the levels that you're at now. And I'll open this up to all of you and whoever wants to jump in and answer. But when you get to the manager stage, and then you're in a real like director, senior director, VP level, or a CEO level, what are some of the key learnings you've learned? What are some of those gems that you can share with the audience? What's different when you're at that entry level manager stage to when you get to, okay, now I'm like really in charge of some shit? I'm going to apologize now. Y'all going to hear shit, and you're going to hear something else coming out of my mouth too.
Okay, I guess I'll start on that one. What I'll say is that when I was working my way up to being a manager, I would say every step along the way, how I look at it and I replay it in my brain has been like a dogfight. In the spaces that I was in, I didn't see a lot of Black planners or people in merchandising. I was normally like the only one present. So really it was about making sure my voice was heard. I never had a problem speaking up, being seen, or being heard. I made my presence known. But I would say in my younger years, it was definitely about trying to learn from whoever the people that were there. I took in the learnings and then, you know, formulated things into my own way of doing things or what I thought could help the brand or the company that I was with. As I started working my way up, I feel that it incorporated a lot of teaching and still learning. I would definitely say between, if you're like me, and there's also a part where obviously you're still learning and trying to gain in information. That space between director and VP for me, I think it was my coming to understand that my way as leading a department or a business unit isn't the only other people bring to the table that are on your team that can, that we both could end up at point C and we might take different paths, but it's okay that they weren't just following Tamara's rule of like how you get there.
Simon?
So to build on that, I think there are a couple of things that maybe they don't, a couple of lessons. One of the, you sometimes are managing one person, maybe two, depending on your organization. The really talks about that, and you go from being a player to sometimes being a player coach, and that transition is a big one. You know, one of the big things of, you know, are you managing people or are you leading people? And learning that difference is a big one. Another piece of it is learning to delegate, because when you are, through your career up until that point, you are being rewarded for doing, right? You are delivering on your, whatever metrics are put in front of you or whatever the definition of success is for your function and role. The minute you become a director, it becomes around you're now getting your work done through other people. So that ability to learn how to delegate, you know, set a clear vision so that your team knows what they should be doing and when, and then unleashing them to figure out the how. And your job as a director then becomes really to like remove obstacles, right? And to pull the best.
Traffic control.
Yeah,
That's what I like to call it.
that's. I said that to my admin yesterday. I'm like, I am air traffic control, and that is my role this week. And then the higher up you go, really your job becomes, yes, to lead whatever function you've been given to lead, but then you also are leading across, and you are now making decisions that impact the company, the organization that you work for as a vice president, and you're often making decisions that are sometimes in conflict with the actual function that you lead. So at that level, the expectation is that you can see broader than your role, you can take that functional hat off, and you can contribute to the company at a higher level. But I love what you said about learning. I think the key to that is just staying curious and having a learning / growth mindset. You know, never sort of rest on your laurels. I mean, every day I'm asking questions like, okay, what am I going to learn today? Who can I pull into this conversation that knows more than me? And if you're the smartest if you're the smartest person in the room, you need different people in the room.
Exactly. Yep.
Y'all write that down. Do you want to add anything to that? Are we good?
My journey's a little bit different, but I would say that the key things were exactly what they were saying. It's the asking questions, listening, like what position you're in. If you're asking the questions to learn and to grow and to be relevant in the business, or if you're asking the questions to see how you can keep moving forward in your business. Questions are very important and very valid. And then just listening. I mean, the people you surround yourself with for a reason, because they hopefully know more than you, and you guys can help each other.
Absolutely.
I would just add, just from an entrepreneurial standpoint too, you kind of are the system and you set the flow, right? So whatever you put out there, that's what everybody's going to move to. And having to do that, you can't just plug into the system and plug out. So I have to win my morning, right? I need to stay in tension. I need to be ahead of the game so I can put out fires as they come into the day. So if I don't win my morning, it's a struggle. And like, it's even how you talk to your team, how you guys build, how you guys grow from that. It's really different than working in a system or working for somebody or working with a team. And now you have to set the vision, the goals, and the targets for that team. And I think that's the hardest thing. Like, we say it's a lot of freedom because we get to move around, but you're responsible for people's lives and livelihood. So like setting that flow and making sure things are in place so business runs smoothly, I think is a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So we talked about our journeys. We talked about how we got here and a little bit of our sort of leadership styles. But I'm sure it didn't come without barriers or roadblocks for many of us. Would you mind sharing what are some of those roadblocks that you ran into and how did you overcome them? I'm looking at all of y'all. Let me see who's gonna hit
I
it.
feel my roadblocks in the room, but just keeping it real. From Detroit, so but I would say yes. But I had to learn that like there is nothing that's for me that anybody can take.
Amen.
So with the journey, remembering that and remembering like the talents and the gifts that I'm giving, that it's my job to actually harness those and build those and do something great with them. Mm-hmm. And the opposite of that is if I don't, that also comes at a cost, right? So yes, there has been many roadblocks when I think about things from like people not believing in your brand or believing you should be there or like not even getting invited to like tables or like so you can have our perspective. Like a lot of the work I do with both you, Melanin, is talking about voices, but also the STEAM education is making sure like Black and brown youth have access to these adequate STEM education, So making sure like the things that, and the way it comes out now in my work is the things that I wanted and the things that I needed, I now create. And like that's why I'm in the position that I am.
Oh, I'll sit here and say there's been landmines and everything else, like pitched at you.
Okay.
And I mean, obstacles, like I can just speak about like inclusion, like when you've put a lot of work into something or project and a client or an account is coming by and not being asked to be in the meeting, even though you've contributed a part, but everybody is sending text messages out from there asking you to provide information. So not having access. There's been times in my career where obviously there hasn't been the support. And how you overcome that is, well, one, you have to stick with it. One, I always held my head high. You know, I'm going to walk in my purpose, and I'm going to still strut around the office, even if you don't have me sitting in that glass enclosed room. It's like I'm still here. Make a path, make a way, make sure that, you know, my team has focus put on them, that they have opportunities to be out there in front of people. And at some point, it was like a mind shift for me. Like I said, existing in mostly white spaces and in the roles in the companies I was in, I'm not proud of myself for it, but I definitely felt like I was in where I had to code switch sometimes to be making sure I was coming across the correct way and speaking in a certain manner in which it would be like more receptive. But then I found my people in places and they looked a variety of different ways. They looked like me. Some of them were white, some of them were Latino. But then I started getting support and then people speaking my name in those rooms where I wasn't. And then I did have the access. But I mean, like other barriers and things there too were just like the lack of opportunities or always having to prove yourself. I always typically had extra projects assigned, extra work, and to show that I had been doing that next role for some period of time where other people had the opportunity when it was, as they were termed, 70 to 80% ready and they got moved along. So, I mean, it's just a lot that you have to deal with.
It is. It is a lot. And when we talk about roadblocks or barriers, we work, all of us, and many, if not all of us in this room, work in very male-dominated spaces.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to take my next question is, how have you dealt with roadblocks as it pertains to gender biases, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, it can be hard to be the only in the room
The
for
only,
multiple reasons,
yes.
right? And I think one of the things I learned was to just use my voice, step into who I was, and lean on the expertise that I was bringing into those rooms, and to not let my voice be silenced, or to not let, you know, not being seen or feeling like I wasn't being heard derail me. The other thing I would say specific to that question is relationships really matter. And I know you hear that a lot, but especially when you are in spaces where you are the one or maybe one of two, the relationships that you can build, I think, help break through that, because once people know who you are, they start believing in you more. They will bring you along with them. And part of that is just creating allies, you know, across an organization. It's really important. You know, what you do and how you do it is important. So make sure that you are knocking the ball out the park each time in whatever your field of choice. But the other thing is, do people want to work with you, and how are you building those relationships? So investing in people and the people that you work with and getting to know them and letting them get to know you. I think early on in my career, I was making what I now know as a mistake for me was that I was one person at work and another person at home. And that code switching was really real. And I learned later on, you know, the higher up I went in my career was when I finally felt comfortable being my full authentic self is when things really started clicking for me. But that was, you know, it was something I had to learn over time and get comfortable doing, because in some spaces that was not, it was not welcomed. And I finally got to a point where I was kind of tired. It's exhausting to live this sort of like this double life and have to put on a cloak to go to work. And I think one day I woke up and I was
It's
like,
heavy, don't it?
it's heavy. And it affects you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me. And I found places where I could show up as me and do well. And so.
Do your homework, do your research. No one wants to be a teammate with someone who's not holding their weight. So whether you're male or female, if you want to be respected, then know what you're talking about. Like, be an asset. I think that's important, and then that can help separate some of those biases that people think they feel if you're, no matter what you're walking in with in your pants, like come in with something in your brain.
Especially in your space, you
Yes.
know, here you are, a woman owning a sneaker store, and it's not, especially when you opened it almost 20 years ago, it just wasn't the norm. So I can only imagine some of the remarks, looks, who's she? You know, it's real. It's a real conversation.
It
so
is.
kudos to you for making it, you know,
thank you.
almost 20 years later, here you are.
Uh, thank you.
Did you have anything to add, Deirdre? Right.
I would just hone in on to what you were stating too about making allies, you know, knowing people that network. Because sometimes when I've had roadblocks, it was me reaching out somebody else when I couldn't advocate for myself to get them to intercede. And I think that's important to have those people in your corner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a perfect segue to my next question. How are you empowering yourself in your role, and how are you empowering the women around you or the women that are coming up under you?
It's being an entrepreneur. It's not the easiest. I feel like for many years I was working in my business and not on my business. But there were many reasons for that. But once I had a team behind me that I felt could handle everything, then it has now given me a lot more opportunity to come to panels like this and talk and to mentor on the side. We did our very first, 19 years, we did our very first internship program this year, which went amazingly. And we had young high school girls that got to see, not just girls, it was a mix, but got to see the industry from beginning to end. So opening opportunities for young people to see, you know, that this is a career industry they can be in has been awesome. But I think the most important thing is to share the experience with other people by giving up some control.
Yep.
I spend time looking for people in our company that I can pull in to my world from other departments. I have a couple of young ladies here from our brand, one from my team. But it's like, yes, like I'm the person that obviously, you know, if we have a black or brown person hired into the company, I pop up in the email, I'm like, hello, you know, and, you know, then eventually when they're ready, it's just like I set a meeting. So I feel like I'm trying to be like what I didn't necessarily get from within past companies, because there weren't necessarily a whole lot of black or brown people there that would be able to mentor me. I had outside mentorship. So I try to be that, to just say, look, I didn't know this when I was coming up. This is what I would suggest, or just listen to them. It's also just about being there to listen to them. I'm also not trying to be a mom, so it's not like everybody's asking for an advice.
Sometimes we can't help it.
Right,
Mama
right.
bear.
But it's like if somebody's asking for advice, or, you know, then I'll give it to them. Sometimes it's just listening situations, engaging where they're at, and let them, you know, work it out in their mind, you know, where they want to go. But I do spend time providing opportunities, even if somebody's title or role is X, you know, to say we can have them working on this so that they can learn more. I want them to be able to expand their horizons if that's what they want to do, which you mentioned earlier, Carmen, where people were like, we're just this. I have a young lady on my team who was like, I'm just customer service. That's all I've ever done. I said, well, if you would like to learn more about the business, I said, merchandising and planning is a great space to come in. I view my department as sort of like a feeder department, because if people do want to pass through and learn, even though, you know, they like the flashier things of product development and design, it's like we get to work with them, and merchandising is so great and planning is great. So just giving the opportunity to show people that there are other avenues within
Exposure to
this
it,
industry.
right.
And right, get the exposure, go work in different departments, and then figure out, you know, what your path is.
I'm a big believer in mentorship and sponsorship. There's a difference between those two, and I can touch on that in a second. What I would say is, you know, being at Target, one of the reasons I am there is because I was attracted to the company's values, and they really have a deep commitment to DE&I and to the learning and development of all team members. So in my role now, I feel very fortunate, and I'm blessed that I actually am an executive sponsor of an accelerated development program that is aimed at our top diverse talent. And that gives me a lot of joy and fulfillment. And really, what we do is we're preparing team members who are at that senior manager role to get to a director role. And so they go through this program and they learn different things. They get to work on their soft skills, they get access to leaders. And so through that, it's really gratifying to be able to create opportunities for team members across the organization, because I, didn't necessarily have that. And so it's really important to me now that I can reach back and help pull forward. And then I probably spend about a third of my time, whether that is helping to coach people across the organization, mentor them, and in some cases, be able to advocate for them too. And I think a key component of that is really listening to them of what are they interested in, what skills do they have, what do they want to learn, and then how do I work through the organization to either put them in front of a leader that would help them reach that career goal, or that they get to work on a project that they're interested in. So similar to what you were saying too about, I feel like my role is to help them connect those dots and make those connections so that what they want to do and what their dreams are can become possible too.
So the two companies, that's all we're about, is empowering women, girls, but also we do young men as well. But just to kind of go into some detail, so how do we think about it in UMelanin? My first two hires for the company were women who just graduated from the University of Michigan that I had worked with the students during COVID, right? And they were hounding down looking for jobs. So like they're still working with the brand today. And then when I think about our STEAM company, we actually have an internship that we just had 2 students graduate out. Our internship have been with us for the last 3 years. And now our company is actually changing and growing. So we're now seeing like what does that empowerment look like now they're away to college. These 2 girls work with our STEM company, learned about entrepreneurship from us. One just went off on a full ride to Spelman, and the other is on a full ride at Yale. So like now we're seeing the fruits of what that actually looks like. And so now our company, our STEAM company, is growing. Like, how do we also make sure we're still staying connected with them as they grow on the next steps of the journey? So it's interesting, like, you didn't set out to do these things, but letting the girls have access to you and showing them the things that can be accomplished, getting to know our business. And they're both majoring in STEM, right? We didn't pressure them, I think, but,
That's great. Anything to add there, Jennifer, before we move on?
No, I
All good. All good. Y'all are dropping all kind of gems. I just want to make sure you're getting your time. My next question for you all is, we have an amazing, talented group in the audience. Is what advice would you give to women who aspire to be similar roles as you are in any leadership role, but right now maybe feeling a little bit discouraged? They're in sort of middle management and just maybe feeling a little defeated. What advice would you give them? I think I stumped them.
know, right? Be kind to yourself.
Yes,
I mean,
be
we're
yourself.
humans and we don't necessarily know what path we're going on, but take everything as a learning experience. Speak up for yourself. If there's something you truly believe in and your heart and mind and soul are all in it, then share it with the world.
I think that's
Believe
one
in
of the
yourself.
hardest parts, but it's so true, is advocating and speaking up for yourself. Even in leadership positions, you tend to want to take care of your team so much that you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm here, so how are you taking care of yourself? But that's a really great point, Jen, and I'm glad that Jennifer, I don't want to assume that it's Jennifer, that you brought up that point.
And I would add to that and just say, just be confident in you. You are a unique human being with your own set of, you bring something special to the world that no one else can do. So just be confident. It may require some patience. I think resilience is a key, without that, I wouldn't be sitting where I sit today. Have had to overcome a lot, but that sense of resilience. And then I would say, like, in practical terms, get out and meet people. Again, try to build those relationships. Go to events like this where you can meet people from many different functions, companies. People are at all different positions of leadership. And put your story out there, and don't be afraid to, whether it's volunteer for different things, if you're sort of an in-between zone, But just don't ever lose that confidence of what you can do, what you bring to the table, because no one else has what you have.
I have one more. Don't be afraid to ask for help. People want to help you, and we're told, oh, be independent. You can do this, girl. You got it. But help is fine. People want to help you, and they want to see you succeed. So take advantage of it.
For sure. And I would even add to that about the networking, and don't let them change who you are. We're hearing those no's and different things. Like, always be excellent at what you do, because somebody's going to see it. And if you need to move on, don't be afraid to do that. But like, always be excellent and like try to network and like keep those relationships. But at the end of the day, you have to stay true to who you are. And I'm sure it's going to be a tough road. And that's what I think we were all struggling. Like, we want to say something that could really help people, not cliche, like just move. You just want to have to give people like some real concrete thing, because it's a very hard situation to navigate. But like, don't lose yourself, stay true to who you are. And I think that's where a lot of things are birthed out, especially a lot of opportunities.
Well, what I would sit here and say is, and I don't want to sound cliche, is like there is power in pivoting and also in hitting the reset button, because the visual that comes to mind to me is when you're saying you're stuck there in that middle management land, and I've been there. So sometimes it feels like you're adrift and at sea. And I had found that resetting my objective, because what I attach to that is sometimes if I'm feeling like I'm adrift and I'm not moving forward or how I expect, negativity or the change in the attitude could also come into that, and how you're carrying out your work at your job. And we obviously cannot let that seep into us. So that's what I'm saying about resetting, taking the time to step back and figure out, do I need to keep forcing this path here, or do I need to find a way to pivot around but then yet still end up at that same spot, at that forward spot that I want to be at? And I found that has helped me. And also then I have a confidant that's completely outside of the business or anything that I do, because sometimes I just need a sounding board or someone that can deliver the verbal smack upside my head about what I need
We all
to
need that
snap
verbal smack
out of
every
what
now
I'm
and
doing. Right. And it's just not that bad, and that there will be a path forward. But I mean, obviously it takes everything that everybody has been talking about, resilience and strength in a way, and advocacy on the parts of others for you, as well as what you do for yourself.
I knew this time was going to go quickly. We've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to shift it just a little bit, because I want each of you to answer this question, because coming off of that self-care breakout we just had, which if you weren't there, y'all missed it, because that was a really good breakout. Shout out to the panel and the moderator there. It's a lot to handle, the different levels that you're at, the work that you do, all that you put into it, the teams that you lead. How are you taking care of yourself in the midst of all of it? How are you balancing home, your passions, your career, while still saying, you know what, I need this for me? I'd like each of you to answer it, because I'm sure someone's going to take something from each of your answers.
So let me think about that. So it's a couple of things I think I try to put into daily practice. One of those is working out, right? I don't even like running, but for some reason when I'm running on the treadmill, I can really think through a lot of things, and I can have these conversations with myself. Like, sometimes I don't think we give ourselves space to hold. We're always more like critiquing, or should I do X or Y? But I think it allows me to really like think through things and like be my alone time, phones up. So I say working out. I love to travel. And so I've been trying to build a life that I can build my schedule around where I am. That means I can't necessarily have a retail store right now. But, like different things, like what little pieces of joy can I put in my day and through my life that, I'm not never empty. That's a big deal for me. Like, I shouldn't have to refill. I should be constantly pouring into myself. And that's what I'm trying to remind myself, and do little things to kind of keep doing that.
One motto I like to live by is like, be where your feet are. So I have little children, so my feet are a lot of places a lot of times. But in order to have quality moments where I'm at, I try to focus on being in that moment at that time, whether it's putting away your phone for a bit just to be with your family, or putting away your phone in a meeting sometimes just so you can focus on accomplishing what you're there, the objective you're there for. But other than that, just being kind and having grace with myself. We make mistakes, but they're meant to be made so that you can learn from them and move on. And working out, something about those endorphins that keep you going, and spending time with family. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Tamara?
I'm the first to admit I'm not great at the balance part of it. I'm not going to come off like appearing like perfection. But what I do try to work through is I try to compartmentalize the different things in my life so I can make sure that I'm present in each of those. But truly, there's not enough time in a week or in a day.
Yeah.
But what I do for myself is I travel. And travel can sometimes just looking like I just need to get to the resort with a beach, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be about I'm going to sightsee every day. It's like just sitting there and a good book,
Yeah.
ground myself in my, in my faith, pray. That's what I do.
Okay.
I would say I finally have gotten to a place where I'm drawing boundaries for myself so that I do have balance. The first 20-something years of my career, I had none. Self-described workaholic over here. And I didn't realize what I was losing by allowing that to happen. So now I try to have boundaries. I try to keep my evenings free so that I'm either working out or spending time with my niece and nephew, family. I also love to travel. People who know me joke that I'm the happiest when I'm on a plane somewhere new, so I make time to do that. And I use my vacation time. For those of you who work at an organization, use your time.
Yes.
And when you do, put the phone away. Like, let people know if it's urgent, text you. That's what I do with my team and people I work with. You can text me. I will not be checking email. I will not be looking at Slack and all the things, but you can text me if something comes up and I will respond and be
That's
available.
important.
But that way
Yeah.
they know they can find me, but then it takes the pressure off of me feeling like I have to check in and do work or log on, and then that stresses me out when I'm supposed to be relaxing. So, like whatever that boundary is for you, and if for everyone's it's different, and just being upfront and communicating that. But the way I take care of myself is working out, traveling, and then time with friends and family.
Mine is going to brunch with my girls on a Sunday. I don't know if anyone else likes to.
Bottomless mimosas.
Okay, we have a few minutes for any questions. I see one hand has already gone up. I think someone's coming around with a microphone. Oh, there's two. No? Kareem, I'm going to ask you to stand. I don't see a mic, so you're going to have to project. Oh, mic's coming. Mic's coming.
Okay. So yeah, well, number one, congratulations to everyone that's on the panel. This is awesome. Monumental.
Thank you.
But my question is, as females in the industry that you all are in, as men, is there anything that we could have done or could do to help you all, kind of ease whatever obstacles or challenges you all had in the career that you're in right now? I just want, maybe
How
you can
much
put
time
something.
you got?
Yeah, maybe you can put something on our minds, we can kind of think about when we leave here as men to help you all.
I feel like a lot of times, even like we're all sitting up here talking about, women advocating for women. I think men can do a better job advocating for women in these spaces, speaking up, making sure women pay. We can talk about a couple different things, but like also fair treatment in the workplace. When you see stuff, don't turn a blind eye. And that's what I would just challenge. We could just start there.
To start,
I think general check-in is crucial, especially if you're in a meeting or an environment where there are very few women in the room. Like check in, ask them how their day's going, or if there's anything you can help them with, or just a friendly check-in is always great.
I think if you've got women on your team or you're working with women, and if you are not hearing them speak up in a meeting, ask them. you know, Tamara, what do you think? I'd love to hear from you. That will go a long way. I think so that presence of mind to realize, are they participating in the conversation? Are they contributing? And I think what happens quite a bit is obviously, you know, sometimes people take credit for ideas that are not theirs. And oftentimes they're also, I'm gonna keep it real up here. And then also what happens is sometimes they are given credit for things that they actually didn't do. So for the men in this room, if you are seeing that happen, you know, if you know a woman on your team worked on something and did a great job, or she was part of a team, you know, make sure she's getting the recognition for that work. That will go a long way. So those would be the two things I would add to what you said.
A couple more hands right here. Okay.
Mines will be fast. What's good, y'all? Ladies, you guys done an incredible job, so thank you. Second, I think I've worked with everyone except for Deidre, so I got a question. Earlier you mentioned hearing your name in a room, your name being said in rooms that you're not president. Can you talk about the importance of that and talk about how things potentially changed in your career when you started to understand that your name was being said in rooms that you weren't in? Because I think, Riam, you talked a lot about advocating for others, and thank you. I've been on the other side of that before. Jen, I'll let you go from there, but that's the question.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of even keep that one quick. Like a prime example is that how I'm even on this panel. Like, shout out to Dwayne for like reaching out to me and making sure I ended up on this panel. Like, that's huge, right? And so like, something as simple as that, like being seen, your work being recognized. And now I'm here with these amazing ladies. Like, that was, boom. Okay, like.
James is, I have to say, in our industry, a wonderful advocate for and for all Black-owned businesses. One,
he is.
Yes, he
definitely an
is.
advocate for me,
Yep.
which has been amazing. But having people like that on your side really, really mean a lot. So.
Well, I haven't worked with James, but
It's all right.
but what I will say is, like, what did that look like? Well, it helped me earn my way to promotion at vice president once my name started getting, ooh, that was bad English, I'm sorry. Once my name began to be said in different rooms. And one of my people is here, and that's Amy Hunter, our VP of DE&I at Caleres. She is just a massive support to me. I believe she's why I'm here, was even considered for this panel. And I was just like, me? Because I mean, I've only been in the footwear industry on October 1st, it'll be 9 years. So it hasn't been necessarily a super, super long time, as long as a lot of other people have had here. But I'm just saying, I've seen the manifestation of what I eventually saw for myself play out through, you know, advocacy and support from specific people.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
No?
We can take the next.
You good? Yeah. Sorry. I think we have time for maybe one more before I get yelled at from backstage. Oh, yeah. I don't know where the microphone is. Okay.
First of all, I'm hanging on you all's every word, so thanks for a wonderful panel. My name is Samia. I have a question that's kind of like a part two for how others can advocate for you. You know, something that, like, there's some buzzwords that really, like, triggered me, Tamara, about you saying, like, well, I would describe my work as, like, a dog fight. I'm, like, in the thick of things. And I was wondering, like, when you all talk about tips and tools and tricks that you use to make sure that you do get credit for things, to make sure that you do have your time and your voice heard in meetings, like, what are some of those, like, your best things that you employ when you really need to, like, put the hammer down?
I want to say two
Well-
of y'all can answer that because we're over time.
Well, I would say maybe one simple thing is make sure that you are talking about the work that you're doing, I find that a lot of women do not. And they put their head down and they do their work and they just expect to be recognized. So if you are, again, for those of you who are working in a corporation, any leader that you meet with, make sure that you talk about like, hey, here's what I'm excited about. These are the things I'm working on right now. So that they start attaching your name to those projects or that work stream, even if they're not hearing it from other people. You tell them what you're doing, right? So I think making sure that you are being really clear about the things that you're accomplishing, set up statuses with different leaders and share that, talk about what you want to do next. And then when it comes to just speaking up, sometimes you have to push past the discomfort, and that goes for everyone in the room, not just the women. Sometimes you can kind of feel a little nervous or a lack of confidence, and sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it and just put your thought out there, and make sure that that people are seeing you. And you can also like phrase things as a question sometimes. That's a great way to, to create a conversation. And if you are seeing like there's an opportunity that is not being discussed and you've got that idea, you could bring it to light by saying, have we considered, and fill in the blank, or could we pivot and talk about, and then you could bring up the subject that's on your mind. But I think that pushing through, sometimes it's hard to do, but you just have to kind of step into it. But I would say the advocacy and making sure like sharing what you're doing is really important.
And
if
when
that
you're
helps.
in those meetings, it's like there's ebbs and flows to meetings, right? And if you guys are on a topic and you're feeling like you have something or you need to present something about your work, you got to put your hand up or even do a circle back. I don't even care if you've moved to a different section. It's like at the appropriate time, bring it back so you can get your point across. And also go and have meetings with people in other departments, even if it doesn't seem like you have a relationship. All parts of the business are basically intertwined. And so the more people that do know about you, you create buy-in, but you also could then be a buy-in source for them as well, because you guys are forming a relationship.
I know we didn't get to all of your questions. We are out of time, but I'll speak for myself and I'll speak for the panel. I hope y'all don't mind. We're here. See us in the halls, see us at lunch. Feel free to come up to any one of us and get your question asked or answered, I should say. Thank you. You guys were amazing. Thank you all for listening. And I think we're getting ready for the next. I think we're getting ready for I don't know what's next, but it'll be amazing either way. Thank you.